Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to my Fallout 4 mod spotlight series, where today we are having a look at the Union Blaster mod, which is being uploaded by user Kentington. And what this glorious little piece of work looks at into the game is a prototype energy weapon, which is reverse engineered from the Zetan alien blaster, giving us the Union Blaster, which apparently has been developed by a strange new faction called the Wanderers Union. And I really love this mod, guys, as it's not just your sort of standard weapons mod that just throws the weapon in there for the sake of having it. There's actually a point to this. It is a standalone weapons preview for an upcoming quest mod called E Pluribus Unum, which looks like it's going to be a really fun quest mod, and one of the major factions in that is going to be the Wanderers Union, and this is going to be one of their weapons that you can obtain during the quest line, which just makes it all the more interesting in my mind. But for this standalone weapons mod, you do get a pretty impressive gun, which thankfully actually isn't too hard to get a hold of. When you do install this, you're gonna have really a couple of ways to get a hold of it. One is either to go to the glowing sea all the way down to the Sentinel site, and you'll find a dead Wanderers Union soldier on the ground there where you can pick up this gun off of him. Or, of course, if you have rank 3 in science, you can go to your friendly neighborhood chemistry station, down to the utility tab, and make your own Union Blaster. But it's gonna be interesting though, because you are actually gonna need alien blaster rounds, as well as a just bog standard laser gun, to be able to make this, as it is basically a hybrid of the laser gun technology and the blaster technology. And then along with that, like I said, rank 3 in science, and then also some circuitry, crystal, fiber optics, gold, and nuclear material. And with all of that together, you will get a pretty fun new gun, which if we do go take a look at the standard version here, this is the standard Union Blaster. And oh, this thing just screams 50s sci-fi, and I love it for that so much. Now the bog standard gun here will do 55 damage, will use fusion cells as its ammunition, at a firing rate of 66, range of 119, accuracy of 145, and a weight of 5.2. And it has a very substantial amount of modifications you can add on to this thing to really change how this gun works. Basically, you can create nearly any weapon you desire, from an energy flamethrower to an energy grenade launcher to just a really powerful charging sniper rifle, if that is what you so desire. So overall, it can become a very impressive and versatile weapon. And yeah, so let's go take a look at its modifications in the weapon workbench, and let's go straight to the Union Blaster here. And in receivers, pretty standard really. We've got our high capacity, our antimatter recirculator, gamma matrix for adding radiation damage, frequency oscillator, inertial dampener, and a recycling chip, so you get a 25% chance to recover ammo per shot, which is always fun and useful. Now then, in barrels, we have 4 to choose from, either the standard short, an extended one which will do more damage and range but reduce your hipfire accuracy, a charging barrel which will make it function very similar to the Gauss rifle in the game, where you have to hold down to charge up the shot, and it will get up to a much higher damage ratio, though as you can see here, 95, which still isn't the greatest thing in the world, but the charging becomes more interesting later on. Now then, we have the automatic Union Blaster barrel, which will just make this thing fire really fast, but with very poor hipfire accuracy. Now next we have grips, which is pretty standard here. You go from your standard to comfort to short to sharpshooters, stock, marksman, and finally the recoil compensating stock. So just whatever you're looking to go for there, you can adjust. Next is the modulator. Oh, and this is where you really start to change how the gun works, and it's wonderful. So in the modulators here, we have the standard one, which will do standard damage. We then have the bioelectric cascade, which will slowly fully shock the enemy if they are organic, and if they're killed while that shocking takes place, they explode into electrical arcs. And that's just fun for everyone, frankly. The next is the Fire Lance module, which will set stuff on fire, and who doesn't love that? It's just great. The Signal Overload, which will do additional damage to robots and may stagger them. The Gravity Well, which will briefly slow down your enemies. And finally, the Particle Recombinator, which, if your enemy gets disintegrated, they leave behind raw materials rather than, generic loot. And that's fun. Makes it easier for cleanup. I mean, it's good. Good times indeed. Next we have is sights, which is, again, fairly standard, though we do have some interesting things in here. We, of course, go from the standard sights, improved standard, which is the iron sights, a short scope, a reflex scope, a recon reflex scope, which is quite interesting, not something you generally see in modded guns, a medium scope, a long scope, short night vision, medium night vision, long night vision, short recon, long recon, and a very interesting one here, the Short Scope X Plus, which requires 0 resources, it's just a free scope. I don't know why it's here, but I kind of like it because, frankly, hey, I'll take anything that's free. It's always better. Okay, and then we have emitters. Now, like I said, we already started changing how this gun works in the modulator, as well as with the, of course, the barrel and the receivers, but the emitters is where you drastically change them. So for instance, we have our standard emitter doing the standard damage, a compound emitter, which will fire multiple projectiles, basically like a shotgun, a vortex emitter, which turns this into basically an energy flamethrower, a warp conduit, which will turn it into a beam weapon, a gravitic tether, which will make a projectile-seeking target, or target-seeking projectile. That's actually how the words go together correctly. There we are. But for reduced damage. But if you're crappy at aiming, yeah, it's a good one. I like it. And finally, the Singularity Core, which basically makes this thing a short-range grenade launcher. It'll lob a little ball of energy that will explode on impact. And remember some of those other things we had before, where you had fire damage, or slowing damage, or not slowing damage, but you could slow down enemies, things like that, combined with these different things, and then say the Singularity Core combined with the charging barrel, so you charge up a little ball orb of energy explosiveness to then fire, doing even more damage. And that is an awesome thing. So you can really mix and match all the different emitters, modulators, barrels, and receivers to change this to some pretty impressive stuff. Like, say, for instance, the automatic barrel with, which one would be? Well, actually, I'm going to go back to the Singularity Core. Basically, it's an automatic grenade launcher at that point, and that's just hilarious. And, yeah, beyond the emitters, we have one final thing, which is, your standard sort of barrel attachments, where we have none, a flashlight, a bayonet, or an electrified bayonet for some extra electricity, which is always good. And, I installed the flashlight on this one just to show it off, because, well, it's like any other weapon flashlight. When you have the gun out, it will actually project a flashlight beam forward, which is fun. But if you don't have the gun out, it will, of course, go back to your Pip-Boy light, which actually is not quite standard for a lot of gun mods out there that tends to use the beam, whether you have the Pip-Boy out or the gun out. But this one will only have the flashlight when you have the gun itself out. But yes, there we go. Let's go play around with these, take some shots, and show off 2 of the experimental ones that I've made. So let's grab the standard Union Blaster, and it pretty much is gonna act like the Alien Blaster. There we go, same sort of sound, same sort of particle effect shooting downrange, but of course doing a lot less damage than the Alien gun does. For a second, I forgot the name of it. Alien Blaster, there we go. And there we are, a pretty standard reload animation for any energy-based weapons. Now let's go over to the explosive one that I made earlier. Now this is the tactical charging Union Blaster, which has a standard receiver on it, nothing too fancy. The charging barrel I mentioned, standard stock, standard modulator, and the singularity core. Now I could have made it a bit more interesting by adding fire or something like that with the modulator, but just to show off it would have helped to actually select it. But to show off the explosion, which is not exactly the most intense of explosions. Let's just fire it close by ourselves first. There we go. It has the same sort of firing sound, but then when it hits the ground, it kind of just fizzles out, really. There we are. And the explosion, as you can see, not the greatest thing in the world. There we are. It's pretty small overall, but of course, if we charge it up, it sounds the same, but it in fact will actually do more damage. But it's hard to tell because of the fact that, yeah, the explosion's just not the largest thing in the world. Let's charge and fire up in the water. It looked like maybe the explosion in the water was a little bit bigger. Let's see. Yeah, actually it did look a little bit bigger. So here's the standard shot again. Little boop, and then the charge shot. Well, actually, no, those look very similar. Okay, so I don't know if the size of it is going to be changed, but the damage certainly does. So that is it. I guess just maybe the particle effect doesn't modulate, which is fair enough. But I hope you did notice that with the charging, we have those lights on top of the gun, which there we go, do light up as we do charge. Always handy. There we go, and of course we have our scope. Beautiful. And of course, go to the next one, which is the scoped homing extended Union Blaster. So again, for the those of you out there like myself who potentially aim badly, well, these projectiles will actually sort of help move towards the target, which is always fun. Which, you know what that means now? We have to kill the mongrel. So let's go over here with this particular one. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Actually, what does this damage do? 59 only with this one, which is with the recycler chip, so if it'll hopefully give me back some ammo. The standard modulator. You know, I really should have played with some of the other modulators on these. Meh, oh well, what are you gonna do? And yeah, so not exactly the most powerful thing in the world, but with the slightly aiming shot, there we go. We do have the recon scope there. And let's see if we shoot over there. How? Ooh, it did actually move towards him. Oh, look at that. That is beautiful. All right, we got to kill the rad stag over there. Good, good. So those really do move quite a ways. When I've been messing around with this so far on my own, I've been still generally shooting at the target, but man, I mean, that thing really does go quite a ways out of its own original firing path. I mean, I'm aiming up here, and it's going straight for the enemy. That is pretty impressive there. I do like that a lot. Hell, you could really blind fire this thing as long as you got a good target, which is always handy to have. And so, yeah, that is the Union Blaster mod. It is pretty cool. I like seeing a reverse-engineered version of the in-game Zetan Energy Blaster, or Alien Blaster, rather. And with all the different modifications you got for this thing, you have a fair amount of choices to what you could possibly do, and that just makes it all the better. So yeah, if you would like to check out this mod for yourself, which I would definitely recommend you go and do, you can take a look at the link in the description, as always. And yeah, I do hope you do check it out, have some fun with it, and of course, I hope you have had fun with this video today, and that you do come back for the next. But until that time, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one.